moving on to the Spectre rings, just setting it up. Bond sees Scarpia. I may need to ADR that name.
Sciara.
Men's asses!
In the beginning, he shows that guy that he's got the ring, so Bond is like, oh, that ring is significant. And then in the helicopter, he rips it off of him, and then he uses that to get into the Spectre meeting in Italy. And then fast forward to the clinic. Out of nowhere, Q shows up just to deliver a warning.
Either you come back in and do this through proper channels, or I go directly to M.
Q would know where Bond is because of the smart blood.
Smart blood allows us to track your movements in the field.
But at the same time, he's obviously only there, like the writers wrote him being there physically because he needed to physically retrieve the ring. But I think that's just sloppy. If the script didn't require Q to physically retrieve the ring, Q just would have called him.
Well, maybe it's because if he goes there, they can't call him. They can't be like, well, where's Q at? They're like, I don't know. He went to some clinic. Oh, he's just got his day off.
I think it's
sloppy.
It's literally just because he needed to physically give him the ring.
It's just so that they can get that ring. And the ring is my least, again, when I watched this movie, the very first time I saw this movie in theaters, it was the moment I realized this was not going to be a good movie. Because leading up to that, I think the movie's actually really fun. And then that moment is just like, no.
Yeah. He puts it on a thing on his laptop and he's analyzing it. The first thing I'll say is that they at least, by way of the ring and then later with Blofeld, they at least acknowledged Green once or twice in the movie. I think you see his photo early on and Q has got some things going on his laptop and you see some stuff. But if you freeze frame it and figure out what's going on, they have two things, okay? So there's a mineral that is being detected called rhyodite. This is what I think is clever, but they never expand upon it, kind of like the sea thing. They never make it known. Rhyodite is a mineral associated with meteorite impact events. Which is, of course, a significant part of the movie where later in Morocco, we're at a point where a meteor impacted the Earth. That whole scene takes place in a meteor impact crater.
It's a meteorite.
The very meteorite which made this crater.
So that's clever, but never made clear, so it doesn't matter. The whole idea is essentially that all of the baddies from the previous films were exposed to the rhyodite. So what you're seeing on those toxicology reports that, Q is seeing, because he's connected to the MI6 servers clearly, and it's detecting this rhyodite. Does that mean that it was in their lungs because they were at the crater or it was on their body or maybe in them or in their bodies? But then later when he's like, all these people are connected and they're all linked by one man.
Oberhauser is still alive. The ring proves it. And it seems they were all part of one organization. Le Chiffre, Quantum, Sciara, your friend Mr. Silver. And do you know who links them all?
And then the arrow points at Blofeld and it's like, DNA match. Okay, so wait. Where'd you get the DNA? Is the DNA off the ring? Is the DNA from the MI6 servers? The fingerprints on the ring were from the Italian Scorpio guy and Mr. White because they had both handled the ring. So, of course, their prints would be on it. But to then say that the DNA is on it...
Franz Oberhauser is dead. Dead and buried.
Did Q get a sample of his DNA off the ring? If so, how did he have a sample of Han's DNA to compare it to if they never found his body after the avalanche? So basically what they're telling us is that they don't have Blofeld's fingerprints, but they do have his DNA? Not only does that not make any sense at all, but Blofeld's not the type of guy to just let his DNA be on a server somewhere. He would have had Silva scrub that a long time ago.
But easy.
But it's like rhyodite, DNA, fingerprints, all these things at once, and it's all stupid because eventually Q's just like, it's all connected, and you're like, my intelligence is being insulted. This is stupid.
Okay, so let me go into this, because this is the part of the movie that I hate the most. Like it just, every time I see it, I was just like, oh God. The Spectre graphic, regardless of how stupid it is, right? I can buy Le Chiffre, I could buy Mr. White, I could buy Quantum, but as we've already said, Silva? That doesn't make sense. But even worse, Patrice? What? So this goes down a whole other rabbit hole for me with Spectre specifically, because it feels like the art department was like, oh, we have this squid graphic that we're going to use, the Spectre graphic for the new movie. Cool. Mendez is like, hey, I want to put like the photo. So I want to put like Oppenheimer up here, and then I want to put all the villains on the tentacles because they're part of Spectre, right? And they go, okay. And then they're like, wait a minute, we don't have enough. Oh, okay. Well, I directed the last movie. You can put Patrice in there. And they're like,
no,
sure.
sir, Patrice was just like a mercenary.
He's like a henchman.
He's just a hired gun.
Right.
No,
So,
he was
okay.
number 15. Even Lashif was not a member of Spectre. Lashif was just a guy
Accountant.
contracted
He's an accountant.
to make
He's a
them money.
contracted guy.
Mr. White was Quantum.
Right.
Tell them I'll get the money.
Money isn't as valuable to our organization as knowing who to trust.
I think it shows that at least they're like trying to show the hierarchy, but like it screws the hierarchy system completely from Spectre because from Russia with Love, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, it makes total sense. Blofeld's number 1. And then he has these agents who are in charge of these operations.
Number 5.
Our consultation fee for the British train robbery, £250,000.
Number 11.
The Spectre number people are essentially the evil counterpart to MI6's double O's, 1 through 9. However, the double O's don't have a hierarchy, whereas in Spectre, the lower your number is, the higher your ranking is in the organization.
We do see this in the movie. Like we see this whole table scene and there's different people and they're different heads and they have their own like ranking. But like it's the understanding that like if you're Largo, who's number 2, Largo is essentially like a big Bond bad, but he's like under Blofeld, who's like, you're going to do this operation and screw with Miami. You're going to do this operation and screw with Russia and the United States. You're going to do this. And they have all of their henchmen. So then to suggest that Patrice is on the same level of that hierarchy, if that is the case, it's stupid. It's ludicrous.
It's just
and
pandering.
Then it makes me mad.
It's just, oh, you like
It is
Skyfall?
pandering. But the DNA thing is so coincidental. Like, it's just like, it would be like just to suggest that like, oh, hey, we shook hands one time and my DNA got on your ring. And so, oh, he must be a part of the organization.
DNA doesn't stick around that long. So that's what I mean. It's like, and it actually is up to debate. It's like, is the DNA, is that because it was physically on the ring itself, or is that DNA from MI6 files? Either way, they should not have any inclination as to who Blofeld is. Like Blofeld being at the top, it shouldn't have had a picture with the DNA match.
That's so stupid.
Of Oberhauser. It should have just been a question mark of who's at the top, and Bond would be like, I think I know who's at the top because I saw him and I have a personal connection to him that goes back to my childhood, to the point where Q would be confused what he's talking about. Instead, we need to make it clear for the idiots in the audience. Hey, Bond, it turns out every adventure you've ever had is connected by this one guy.
Right. Part of the problem is that scene is such a like fast-paced thing where he's like trying to figure it out and he's typing all this stuff. But we don't sit to pause long enough because they want to get just to the graphic really quick. So had Q just explained it and been like, what's interesting is I also looked up, there's a bunch of people from your past that also, for some reason, have this in their toxicology reports, and then all boom, boom, it's Green, it's Mr. White, it's like all these other players that he's run into. And it wouldn't and then not do it as a stupid graphic, but then it would make it suggest like, these are all weirdly connected. Like there might be something connected, but being like a little more vague and not putting a stupid Spectre graphic